Hey, good morning. This is Joe from Citrus County Porch Life bringing you the AA Word of the Day for January 24th, 2025. And the word for today is getting involved. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. Helpful is our only aim. And that is from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, pages 88 through 89. And here's a daily reflection. I understand that service is a vital part of recovery, but I often wonder, what can I do? Simply start with what I have today. I look around to see where there is a need. Are the ashtrays full? Do I have hands and feet to empty them? Suddenly I'm involved. The best speaker may make the worst coffee. The member who's best with newcomers may be unable to read. The one willing to clean up may make a mess of the bank account. Yet every one of these people and jobs is essential to an active group. The miracle of service is this. When I use what I find there is more available to me than I realized before. Well, in the quote, they slipped in a biblical quote from James: faith without works is dead. And we have a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous: if all you do is stay sober, you're dry drunk. Kind of the equivalent of saying I'm a Christian, I believe, and never doing a thing for anyone else. There are so very many jobs in AA. You know, you go in and most times the meetings run so very, you know, it's just smooth from start to finish. Uh, People speaking, it all seems like, you know, it was planned, and actually, it has been planned. Each meeting, I've held most of these positions, and I just made a sort of cursory list of some of the jobs. Some of these now, for the safety of the group, require a certain amount of sobriety, and it depends on the group conscience of the group. No one else can tell another group what to do, so things like the secretary, the treasurer, these require more time in AA. But here's a job: secretary, of a very difficult position voted on by members. And it's, uh, if everything runs right, you look perfect. If things go wrong, they blame the secretary. I've been in that position. And yeah, the treasurer, responsible for all the donations, responsible for writing checks. You got to write checks for books so you can have beginners packets. Uh, you have to pay rent. You have to keep a reasonable reserve, prudent reserve, they call it in AA. Something like 2 or 3 months worth of rent, just in case you happen not to have any donations. Very important job. You have to be honest and trustworthy. There's a person in charge of raffles. Now, every group does not have a raffle, but one of the ways that groups pay for the books is to have a raffle. Uh, you can buy a 25-cent ticket, and if they call your number, you get your choice of a book that's on the table. And they also, almost every meeting I've had that has a raffle, if you are a newcomer, you get the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Somehow your ticket always, if you're a newcomer, the newcomer's ticket always wins a big book. which is wonderful because when you walk through the door for the first time, you don't know what's available in literature, and it really helps you. You can read it at home at your leisure. Now they're also online. The setup. Some the setup is usually involves more than one person because when I went to the first meeting I used to go to was at a church called St. George Church. It was an Episcopal church, as big as a cathedral, and they had what they called a great room. And you could set up 100 chairs and it'd all be filled. It was on the second floor, and right across from Brown University. And that you need more than one person to do that, and to get the table set up, to hang the signs for the meeting, all the signs that I used to hate and now like are, let's see, what else? Yeah, you want to make sure that the beginners packets are on the table. So anyone who identifies as a newcomer, they can have a packet. And probably held in more esteem than the secretary or the treasurer, the coffee maker. Because if you can make a good cup of coffee, everybody at the meeting will love you and sing your praises. Uh, that was something I was never good at. I'm better at it now, uh, now that I'm more of a coffee snob. But I was so afraid that someone would ask me to do that because at one point in my life, I didn't drink coffee, and boy, it was scary. That was a scary task, but I had people. Once I was chosen, I asked this guy Pete. I said, Pete, can you help me make coffee? And then of course the cleanup crew, because many of these facilities charge a minimal rent. I've been in some churches; they see it as their mission. They don't charge anything. Uh, some just actually pay part of the insurance for the building. Uh, renting it out, they have to have special insurance in case anyone gets hurt. And I've seen that happen. I've seen one lady so drunk she fell down and broke both her wrists. And but the cleanup crew, you want to leave it better than when you came in. You're the guest of the church or whatever facility you're having the meeting at, and you just want to be responsible and do a good job and have them happy to renew whatever arrangement they have with the group so that you'll have a home, have a meeting. Because I've been at some through no fault of their own, buildings were sold, and there was one. It's a good day to be sober. One group that I went to was held at a sober house that a gentleman donated to AA, and AA determined that they couldn't own it, and so they turned it into a shelter for women, and we had to find a new meeting, and we did eventually. But we used to meet in our cars, bring some seats, and make a circle of cars in this whole empty parking lot, and have a meeting like that. We wanted to keep it together. It's a good day to be sober group, and eventually we found an old factory building that was quite large and had comfortable chairs, and we were able to increase the meetings to every 2 hours, 8, 10, 12, 2, 4, and 6. And it turned out to be nice. There were problems with people who were neither sober nor clean coming in and sleeping. And I had an incident where I went over to ask a guy if he wanted to join me in the meeting. I'm talking to him, and I said, you only need two people for a meeting, and he was dead, and I didn't know that, and so the cops interviewed me, but I didn't know his name. I didn't know who he was. I had nothing to do with however he died. I'm sure it probably was an overdose. You have jobs, uh, central service rep. Very, very interesting. You can keep your pulse on what's going on in AA in your state or in your region, and you get to see all their initiatives. When I was one, there was a push for electronic donating because as ATM cards and debit cards became more popular, people didn't carry any cash, especially when uh, for some of the groups that had younger members who were used to not carrying any cash and putting everything on their debit card. Uh, so as a member, a CSR member from my group, I saw how that program developed and it was very interesting because donations started to fall for all the groups, and some of them couldn't pay their rent because people just didn't bring money to meetings, and so it did. They did. You could go home at that time. There weren't tablets really. You could go home, get on your computer, and if you went to a meeting on a weekly basis, you could donate whatever amount you wanted. Wow, is that loud? I thought it would be a nice quiet day today. Uh, Statewide in Rhode Island, they had a speakers bureau, and you could go out and speak to different groups. They also staffed some of the AA meetings that were held in different hospitals that had mental health psych units. I've I've done that. Um, Now there are some speaker groups, and what they do is speakers come into, say, like our meeting. We listen to them. They're from another part of the state, or even close by. In Rhode Island, it was close by Connecticut or nearby Massachusetts, and then you would reciprocate and go to their meeting and speak, and that way when you're in a group like that, you have most of the time you have speakers coming in, and you see the variety of stories of people's experiences in AA, and I loved it. I loved going out meeting people all over the place, and you'd have 5 or 6 guys in a car, and you'd have a meeting on the way down. It was just exciting. I liked it. You can have a greeter. This is very important, and I can speak to it personally because I was so nervous about going to my first meeting, and the guy that came up to me was so nice and introduced me to people. If you need this, if you need that, the coffee machine's there, the men's room down. Things that once you go to a meeting, you take for granted, but if you're sitting there having to go to the bathroom and you don't know where it is and you don't want to interrupt the meeting, a greeter is an important person. Events coordinator. These are the people that plan individual anniversaries, group anniversaries, or special functions. I've been to meetings where they had dances. I used to go to a meeting in Boston, and it was held right near the Kennedy Library, right on the water, even in the winter. So you go bundled up with a hoodie and a heavy coat. And in the summer, you could go in shorts. and we'd go out to eat after the meeting. Because for a time there, I worked at Bank of Boston, right near where the meeting was held. Uh, you have people like that are really friendly, who know a lot of people, and they love to give out medallions. People, 24-hour medallion uh, for monthly. Usually at a meeting, it's monthly. First year, being then as needed. Whoever's got an anniversary coming up, you kind of ensure that someone's got those medallions that you're going to need, and if they don't have them, you make sure you get them. So there, I think I mentioned 12 different jobs, and that's not a full list. That's just what I can think of now. So there's always a way to get involved, whatever suits your personality. If you're not great with talking, oh, and one more, 13 people who run the beginners meeting, who have a knack with the beginners. That was very important for me. I went to it 6 months. I concentrated on step one. I could almost quote it to you back then because we read it every week, start to finish, and discussed it. And I, I, I've done it on a fill-in basis, uh, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. Seeing people, their minds clear, the fogginess gone. They can read it and make sense of it, and they're on their way. So that's 13 jobs. Ooh. I had a tuna fish sandwich before I began this, and my goodness, I'm hiccuping. But it's important work getting involved in any way you can. So, God bless you all. Have a safe and sober day. Sorry this took so long, but I thought for newcomers or people thinking of going to a meeting, these are just some of the jobs you'll see there. And get friendly with the greeter if you're going to your first meeting. Uh, they, they can help you a lot. So, talk to you tomorrow.